What's happening, people? Thank you for tuning in to the Cassius Morris Show. Welcome to episode number 121. I have just walked through the door from a very exciting concert experience down at the Rogers Place in Edmonton, Canada, for the Snoop Dogg and Friends concert. Now, I'm going to give you guys the full concert review for this event. Before we jump into the actual review, I want to add a couple of important details that were leading up to the show and some important information that might be worth noting. So the original lineup here, accompanying Snoop Dogg, was supposed to be Bone Thugs and Harmony, Warren G, Kurupt, and Luniz. That was the original bill that was announced by Live Nation. Then somewhere along the line, Luniz was taken off of the bill. Now, this is a short 4-show run that Snoop is doing in Canada. I believe he started in Saskatoon, came here to Edmonton. Tomorrow he's doing Calgary, and after that he's moving on to Vancouver. So potentially it could have been an issue with Luniz not being able to get into the country from the United States. I do know that Bone Thugs and Harmony and I think Kurupt on stage mentioned that customs were really good to them this time coming around, and they actually just let them in without any issue, without taking them into the back room. Let me sip this gin and juice real quick. I got one since the show's over. Cheers. But that might have contributed to why Luniz couldn't show up to the show. But nonetheless, Luniz was then replaced by Afroman. And Afroman, I was super excited, of course, to hear that he was on the bill because, of course, I just had Afroman here on this podcast a month ago. And, of course, it was an awesome interview. So I hollered at Afroman, wanted to see if anything was going down. Didn't end up getting a response to that, which makes sense. You know, this is a much bigger show. The last show that Afroman did, he was doing a tiny little nightclub gig, so he probably had some more time. But when the show is bigger and the production's ramped up like this, it does make it difficult. And I was actually fighting hard to get a Snoop interview as well, because I've wanted to interview Snoop for a long time. I was calling and texting and emailing every single person who I knew was representing him in terms of management, any publicist I could get a hold of, any Snoop Dogg-related company. I was calling and texting and emailing like crazy the month leading up to this event. And I don't know who, I don't know where, but somebody somewhere along the line saw my request to either photograph the show and or interview artists from the show, and went ahead and approved me for a photo pass officially through the venue. And I got notified about this via email yesterday, right before the show. And as I got notified that I got the email for the show, I was having a conversation with my roommate. And I was saying, I've called and texted everybody who I can for this show to try to either photograph it or do an interview. And I just can't get a response. And I'm honestly starting to run out of hope for this event. I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to cover this. And I shit you not, as those words came out of my mouth, I got an email and I looked at it and I got a photo pass approved for that show. So it's just, it was a great feeling, and it's, again, if I can do anything here with this whole operation that I got going on, I want to be a living example that if you want to do something, you put in the proper steps and you can do it. That is the number one goal that I wanted to achieve here. So I was notified that I got a photo pass. So the whole course of my night changes. I'm going down to cover the event. I was very excited. Now, they said for media to meet at 7:25 p.m. at the media entrance. So I was, of course, there at 7:10. One of my favorite sayings is that 5 minutes early is on time. On time is late, and late is unacceptable. That's one of my favorite quotes. So I definitely operate by that when I'm doing media. We got walked back. This was more organized. Sometimes when you're doing press, they simply let you into the venue and sort of let you run loose. They say, meet us at the photo pit 5 minutes before each artist starts, and we'll just let you in. Then other times, mostly at Rogers Place, they have it organized where you meet a media liaison. They walk you backstage to the media room where you can store your stuff, and then they escort you to and from the floor to make sure that you don't have any troubles with security and everything, which is really nice because I have before. So we're in the media room, and we're having the conversation about Afroman opening the show. And, of course, the conversation is Afroman is probably going to be late. Now, to give you some perspective, when I did the interview with Afroman, we started texting him around 10 a.m. To get this interview scheduled, and the interview didn't end up happening until about 3 a.m. or 3:25 a.m. Edmonton time. So a long, long time after. So you want to talk about being late? It's like, a long ass time. So we were well prepared for that. Right after we're having this discussion, we hear the music of Afroman coming into the press room. And everybody sort of looking around at each other, laughing, saying, shit, since when in history has a hip-hop show started early? I've never heard of that happening before. So we all sort of had a laugh, but then we just geared up and got ready to go. You got to roll with the punches. It's almost like live television. When you're doing an event like this, it's really everything goes when the artist is ready and when the artist says go. So really you're on call, so to speak. So we're let into the venue, and the attendance at that point was quite light. Now, I know Afroman started at 7:25, and Snoop Dogg didn't even go on until 9:45 p.m., so most of the audience wasn't there. But I wasn't sure if it was going to fill up, because the other night, Snoop did an arena that seats 15,000 for capacity in Saskatoon, and he sold just over 6,000 tickets. So I definitely wasn't sure how the attendance was going to be in Edmonton. But luckily, I was proven to be wrong. The venue was pretty much sold out, this venue. It was filled up to the top of the rafters, all the way around 360. There weren't any sections blocked off. And Edmonton showed out in full force for Snoop Dogg and the Dog Pound and everybody else on the bill. They definitely filled that bitch up 100%. So as we're walking in, Afroman isn't doing a song anymore. He's doing corny knock-knock jokes up on stage. Which, whatever. Afroman's character is sort of like the drunk uncle at the cookout that everybody, dearly loves. So you sort of let him get away with a little more stuff. I thought it was kind of funny, whatever. Then we got the good news that we could shoot in the photo pit for the entire concert set, the entire time Afroman performed. So the entire time all of these acts performed, I got to be up in the photo pit. And if you don't know where the photo pit is, that's right in front of the stage where the security is standing to guard the artist. They have photographers weave in and out of there. Usually it's the first 3 songs of the performer's set, and then you have to leave, and sometimes you get special permission to stay the whole time. So next time you're at a concert, if you never noticed that, look in the front where the security is in the first 3 songs, and you'll likely see photographers. That's exactly what I'm referring to here. So I checked out Afroman's set, and it was short and sweet. He did about 20 minutes on stage. He didn't do any songs that I was familiar with. I like One Hit Wonder, Colt 45, Colt 45 and 2 Zigzags. A lot of cult themes going on here. But he didn't do any of the songs I knew, but he did break out his double-necked guitar, and I thought that was one of the highlights of the show. He played a little rendition of Because I Got High on there. And it was fun. That's what the whole Afroman set was about. I mean, he was high, he was faded, just like in my interview. But he did what he had to do. And he hollered out, and he said, I need somebody out here to give me some of that good Canada weed. I need some of that, to arrange somebody to come backstage with some of that good Canada weed. So let's put that together. And I was like, I already hit you up, man. I already hit you up, so you're slipping right now. I could have had it for you. He already knew I was going to have it for him. But that's okay. Hopefully he got it from somebody else. The next artist that came up was actually the Dog Pound Gang, which wasn't announced, wasn't advertised on this bill, but it was that nigga Daz and Kurupt who came out to do a couple of songs, get the crowd pumped up, including Explosive from the legendary record 2001. When we're talking about legendary stuff, everybody grew up on this record. It's so weird how I grew up on this record and so did my parents. It's so interesting how it crosses generations. But, I grew up on this stuff, and, 2001, Doggy Style, and The Chronic were really my first introductions to hip-hop. So seeing them do some renditions of that was great. That was the first Nate Dogg tribute of the night as well. They definitely paid a lot of tribute to Nate Dogg throughout the entire show, as they should. And it got me thinking, these are their fallen brothers, and it could have been them, and we could have been seeing those guys doing tributes to Snoop or whoever it may be. They're lucky to have gotten out of the era that they were in. And as I was up there, closer, than security or anybody else in the building, with my hands and wrists on the stage taking photos, I'm looking into their faces and I'm just thinking about their stories, thinking how far they've come making this music. They're survivors. There's not only are they survivors, but they're iconic legends. So that's what was running through my mind at that point when Daz and Kurupt were on stage. They aren't playing. It was the real article coming out on stage in Edmonton. One of the nice things that I appreciated about all of the acts on this show was that they remembered what damn city they were in and remembered to say it and make it known. That's one thing that sort of agitates me. When I go to a concert, I want to hear the name of my city at least 3 or 4 times in an enthusiastic manner. There's artists that I really, really love, but they don't know how to connect with the audience and make it known that they love that city. We're going to talk about how Snoop did that in just a second. He did a very good job of that. But all of the artists on this bill were showing love to Edmonton on the microphone and thanking them for coming out. They seem to have a real interest and fascination with Canada. There's really not a lot of education, if any, honestly, about Canada going on in the United States, especially in a lot of the areas that these guys are from. And I'm not showing any signs of disrespect. Obviously, they toured the world and they know about it very well. But, you know, they seem to mention the typical things like Wayne Gretzky and the Oilers and Tim Hortons. So it was kind of funny and refreshing to see a performer talking about that. I've been seeing a lot of Canadian performers coming in here. So the Dog Pound Gang did a little set, and they did the introduction for Kurupt, who came out and did his full set, aside from the gang, which was, of course, very impressive. He was posing and doing a lot of photos for me. Next was Warren G, and Warren G came out and did a lot of classics. That's when we saw a lot of people standing up and sort of starting to get really into the show. You saw the rafters starting to fill up, and people heard that Warren G was coming on. There was lots of T-shirts, lots of memorabilia of people who were obviously really into the group. All of them, you know, the whole gang. You could really see in people's faces that they've been wanting to see an event like this for a long time. And I'm not sure if an event like this has even come to Edmonton, at least in recent years. I know Snoop has done a show here at some point in time, but I don't think it was a big arena show. And typically things like this don't really happen around here with the guys who aren't on a huge level. Like the guys on a huge level right now, like Drake or Kanye, they'll, you know, inevitably end up at Rogers Place. But Snoop and them, this wasn't one that I would have called. So I will say I was really happy to see it at Rogers Place and to see it going down the way that it did. After Warren G was Bone Thugs and Harmony. And you know what? They seem to be one of the most awaited acts of the night. Obviously, they're the second biggest headliner on the show. And they came out and they brought the best description I can give for Bone Thugs' set tonight was big energy. That was the biggest thing. The energy was incredible. They were really a group when they were on stage. That was one of the things that you could tell the most. They really made it known that they're a group. They're together, and they were sort of like tapping on each other's shoulders and looking at each other and hyping each other up and really including one another in the performance. You know, it's such contrast where in my last concert review I was talking about how I saw Kiss and Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley look at each other maybe once on stage the entire night. You know, to see the camaraderie of some brothers up there who actually do have love for each other still, and if they don't, at least they're faking it better than Gene and Paul or whoever it may be, was refreshing and nice to see. They all just seemed happy to be in Canada, happy to be performing the music that they love, and happy to all be together, celebrating 25 years of Doggy Style and of a G-Funk. So, you know, the general vibe was really positive. One thing that I did notice in the security pit, since this was a smokers event, I forgot to mention this about Warren G. I say it's a smokers event. It's Snoop Dogg and Friends. So obviously you're expecting a lot of weed smoke to be going on there. You're seeing the backdrop on YouTube behind me right now. They actually redesigned that backdrop. At first, it was a bunch of weed leaves in the back, and it was like a pot themed advertisement. And they actually changed the advertisement to like a red standard backdrop. And I think it's because they didn't want to be marketing this as a smoke out. That's one of the things that I have noticed about concerts that is shifting in Canada since marijuana has become legal here, is that they're starting to try and crack down more and focus even more on it. You know, in an odd way, when weed was illegal in Canada, it was almost a bigger deal to light a cigarette at a show, at concert, than it is to light a joint, because it was legal and there was legal consequences attached to that, as there is with the cannabis, but it sort of made it a bit of a different thing. Now it's all sort of lumped in the same. And I could see it going one of two ways. Either they're going to say, look, this is Snoop Dogg, okay? Let's not even bother about the weed smoke. Let's just let them smoke. Or they're going to try and go crazy and try to police everybody from stopping smoking. Now, the one thing that I saw is the artists were on stage trying to encourage smoking, but the people in their immediate vicinity up in the front row that I was looking at and off to the sides of the lower bowl were being prevented from joining in on that fun. We had rappers smoking up on stage, telling the crowd to light it up. And then a dude in the front row got pointed out by Warren G. And Warren G says, "Hey man, what you got there? You throwing it up like you got something." And the dude pulled out a joint, and he was holding it up. And he said, "Oh, he's got a joint. He's got a joint." And then Warren was like, "Hey, I don't want to rat on you," into the mic. He was like, "I don't want to rat on you and call you out." This dude's holding his joint up, and he accidentally drops it. As he was dropping it, security was yelling at him saying, "If you're going to smoke that, you got to smoke outside," or something like, "If you're going to hold that up, you got to go outside." They were just yelling something and pointing to the back of the arena. And this dude dropped his joint by mistake, and it was right within reach of security. And he asked security to pass it to him, and security just turned a blind eye and walked away. And then he made sure to go tell his other security guards not to give it to him, and then one of the third security guards came over and stomped on his joint. Now, I work with a lot of these guys in different capacities. I don't think they're bad guys, but I think that they can definitely turn on the not so friendly security mode, and I really think it's unnecessary, especially in an event like this. I was hoping they wouldn't turn it up that notch, but they did. If I dropped a cigarette and I asked the security to pass me my cigarette and he stomped on it, I'd be putting in a complaint because I think that's a dick move, and I bought that cigarette. A joint is probably worth about $10 nowadays. It's legal. He's allowed to carry it. Why would you, why would you do that? It's just stupid. You could see it kind of ruined the guy's night. He paid a lot of money for front row tickets. He wasn't lighting it. So, I just thought that was lame. And I didn't appreciate how security, and I understand it's their venue. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it should be a smoke fest. I'm just saying this is Snoop Dogg. And at a certain point, if you're going to have Afroman, Snoop, and all these people coming in and you don't want weed smoke in your venue, then maybe you just shouldn't have the event. But they were cooperating with people. They weren't too crazy about it. But definitely in the front row, they were super strict. And if you bought tickets up close to that show to try to go to a smoke out, you were in trouble. You were definitely in trouble. So Bone Thugs did their entire set. I checked the whole thing out. Again, was up there in the photo pit for the whole entire concert up until Snoop. When Snoop came, they escorted us back to the media room because there were other photographers that came in. So they joined us. They walked us in, and they're playing music, sort of loading up for Snoop, getting ready to go. And then the lights turn off. They're playing music louder. Da-da-da. There wasn't really that big, all the house lights shut off, and everything's dead silent, and the concert's about to start. Then suddenly, while this music's playing and lights are still even on, Snoop Dogg just comes, I guess I'll call it crip walking out onto the stage, just dancing to whatever song was on. There was no introduction. There was nothing. He just came onto the stage. So it was hilarious. It was just, there's Snoop in a Oilers jersey that says Snoop Dogg on the back and an Oilers toque. So that's what I'm saying about representing the city. Some of the most standout concert memories I have aren't even really from the music. It's from making the city feel included. I remember when Drake came out in Oilers jersey. It's immortalized backstage now at the Rogers Place. I just saw it the other day in a painting, photo rather. So Snoop coming out and doing that, and he wore it for the whole show. I thought it was super, super cool. I got to say, being that close to Snoop was really something special. Like I said, these are the only legends from this period of time that I'll ever get the chance to encounter, work with, or be around. And being a foot from Snoop, taking photos of him while he rapped some of my favorite songs was really heavy. It was really heavy. It was the real deal. He came out and he did the Shiznit. He did he did sort of a 3-song medley for the first couple of songs, and just really engaging the crowd. He was going up to the cameraman, rapping right in the camera, getting in his face for the big screens on the Jumbotron, and really just rallying everybody up. And the crowd started to loosen up. People were definitely getting more intoxicated throughout the night. There was a lot of issues with people just being too drunk and just weird stuff going on with security, and that definitely increased when Snoop came on. So after the 3-photo set, I had to leave. There's media procedure, protocol, blah, blah, blah. Then I went down to my seat. And by the time I went to my seat, Snoop had launched into a remix of Lodi Dodi, which was awesome. He did a faster remix with an all-new instrumental that I'd never heard. And I thought it was cool that he was providing a fresh take of certain songs. Some people don't like that. Some people want to go to a concert and hear the song the way that it was originally recorded. Other people want to hear it switched up. And I think that Snoop actually struck a really nice balance of doing the two of those tonight. He did a lot of his old classics, but he did some medleys and updated versions. And I think that it's really spiced up the show in a way that people wouldn't generally expect. Then he went into Serial Killer. He brought Daz out on stage with him. They were going crazy, throwing their hands up. People really like that one. You know, anything from Doggy Style, obviously it's the 25th anniversary of Doggy Style Tour, so people are going to be going crazy for that. Then it was time for the strippers. For the first time that night. So the first time the strippers made an appearance, he has this song about strippers and cash out with Ty Dolla $ign. And he brought the poles out. So there was about 2 girls on either side that were on poles. So 4 poles, 2 on the left, 2 on the right of the stage. By those 2 poles, there was a girl on each side, on the left and right, also just standing dancing. Because he had backup dancers the whole show, which were really good and really hot, by the way. I got to tell you. So these stripper poles come out, and these girls are jumping on them, swinging around, going crazy. And all I can see is these poles just wiggling side to side like crazy. And they aren't mounted into anything. These are like prop poles that they brought out and stuck onto the stage with nothing mounting them into the ground. So all I'm thinking while I'm looking at these beautiful, gorgeous women, when I should be thinking about that, I'm thinking I'm about to see a stripper hit her head on the goddamn stage at the Rogers Place. Because honestly, that's what it looked like. These stripper poles did not seem secure. I've never experienced that, being worried for a stripper while watching her. So it was hilarious, honestly, but it went off without a hitch. Luckily, they knew what they were doing, but some of the dancers even looked like they were being a little hesitant with that. Then Snoop went into his verse off California Girls. You know, I just, whatever, I watched that. That's a big radio hit. That's one of the things that this concert actually did. Like, when he does those little tidbits from those songs, you remember how many hits and features Snoop actually has. And also how goddamn rich he's got off that. Because seriously, he has a lot of slaps, and he's been doing it for a long time. Another notable moment that came up during his set, he did I Wanna Fuck You with Akon. That one was going crazy. That one is a huge hit here in Alberta because we're just so classy. We're just a classy province, so we have hits like I Wanna Fuck You playing on the radio for kids. So yeah, that one got the place going crazy. And then the next episode came on. It was funny to see the dynamic between like the Gangster Snoop and the Gangster Snoop fans, and then like the Pop Snoop fans. It's almost like we had 2 different audiences coming together and colliding in one. And like it's like the people dancing to one song weren't dancing to the other, but everybody was sort of vibing all at once. I found it to be a quite interesting mix. From the next episode, of course, he did, all the Nate Dogg stuff. People were going crazy. He went into Bitch Please 1, which, of course, is some classic Snoop Dogg. By this point, I started really noticing the lighting. The lighting was actually very good. It wasn't your standard lighting. It was changing a lot, and they had a wide color scheme. It'd be like a row of purple, a row of orange, a row of yellow, all above the stage, and they all had their own choreography. Each row of lights. They weren't all going together. So I thought that it was cool. Like, it didn't look like somebody just took a general concert lighting program and just pressed play on demo. It looked like they actually went in there and put effort into making the lighting and actually making a light show. So I thought that was a really good thing that they included. Then I thought this was the end of the concert. Snoop came out and did Gin and Juice. And again, at this point, Snoop getting the crowd riled up, getting them waving their hands back and forth, and just really having them chant back at him, just doing all of the things that a good entertainer should do. Again, nothing irritates me more than when an artist is up there just going through the motions and they aren't getting the city and the people involved. It's not as engaging, and it doesn't create as good of an atmosphere and vibe in the room. He went through a couple more songs. He brought out a guy in a big Snoop Dogg like stuffed animal costume of a dog, and he had a big long dick. It was like a, what do you call him? A mascot, like from a baseball game, during Ain't No Fun. And I guess it was like some of his dogs trying to get some or something. It was funny. When he did Ain't No Fun, Kurupt came out, Daz came out, the whole gang. And I watched the legendary Coachella show with Dre and Snoop, where he brought out Eminem and all that. It kind of felt like I was at that. The whole gang was out there on stage. And it was super cool just seeing everybody in action doing their verses and stuff. Of course, iconic songs. Then something quite odd happened, I gotta tell you. I turn around, because we saw people like looking to the back. I thought that like somebody might have been hanging off a skybox or something, because there's skyboxes above us. I said, shit, is somebody too drunk? And I turn around, and there was like a big vicious fight in our section. We were in the back of the lower bowl, and there was a vicious fight going on, like 10 rows behind us, 9 rows, something like that behind us. They were really going in. They were punching each other hard. Security came to intervene. I saw my roommate saw one of them punch a security guard square in the face. And I also saw them fighting with a different security guard. 2 of them were trying to drag one of the girls up the stairs while she was throwing punches. It was crazy to see. I didn't necessarily expect that of Snoop Dogg. I think it's a little ridiculous. Like, how old are you guys? Look in the mirror. You're throwing punches at Snoop Dogg. What the fuck? Like, what is this? So I think that should definitely be assessed, but they can have their therapy session later. But it definitely like made a lot of people around. It was a vicious fight, and like a couple rows around, there were people injured and hurt. And that's why I don't appreciate the fact that they're running around the crowd, flashing lights at me, who's not doing anything, looking for people who are smoking, when they could, the girl's standing up there looking for that, and I'm looking at a fight going on. It's like, why don't we worry about the actual crime that could happen? After the fight, though, it sort of coincided with the start of the next song, which was called Sensual Seduction. I think this is one of Snoop's newer songs where he's singing. And this, to me, was the lowest point of the night. This song, I've never heard it before. I don't like this song at all. I don't like saying something's a bad song or not a good song, because who am I to say that? This is an opinion-based thing. That's why I'm cutting, part of why I'm cutting back on album reviews. It's just because it's all opinion based. There's no such thing as a terrible song, because that terrible song in your mind can bring someone a ton of joy. But this song just is not doing it for me, and I think it's cheesy and corny. Snoop brought the strippers back out again for this song, which I thought was just redundant. If it wasn't for my review, I might not have continued to stay past that point, because he'd played his hits and people were sitting down and starting to leave, which I thought was unfortunate. So, I know Snoop wants to spice it up and throw some singing in, but maybe he should take a look at the crowd reaction and maybe throw in some better songs or something like that. I don't know, to sing to, because he was realizing that some people were sitting down. He even said it. And I'm thinking, well, maybe because you're playing that, Snoop. You know what I'm saying? So maybe play something different. But then he went into a DJ set, and this was one of the funnest parts of the night. So Snoop paid tribute to some of his old fallen friends. First, he played Cruising Down the Street in My 6'4" by Eazy-E. Had the crowd go crazy, singing Rest in Peace for him. Then he moved into Hypnotized by Biggie. And again, just getting the crowd in with big crowd involvement. How many of y'all out here in Edmonton love Biggie? Make some noise if you love Biggie. Make some noise if you miss him. Just getting the crowd going crazy. And here we are at the end of the show. The energy isn't wearing off. The energy is still building. So it was very, very good to see. Snoop's energy didn't waver. I mean, because he's not putting out too much energy, I guess, on stage, which is good. Which is good. I think it was a very positive thing. So then after Hypnotized, he went straight into Two of America's Most Wanted to say, you guys missed Tupac. And as I'm listening to it, I was jamming out, and I was like, shit, Snoop has a verse on this. And there he goes. He did this verse on that live. And that was probably my favorite moment of the show, Two of America's Most Wanted. Whether you believe in this type of stuff or not, I don't know. It felt like, Pac's friends were in the room. They're saying, rest in peace, Pac, we miss you. There was some form of Pac presence in the room. We have the live Snoop Dogg doing his verse. So that was it. I really took in that moment. I said, this is the closest I'm ever going to get to seeing Biggie, to seeing Pac, to seeing any of those legendary East or West Coast side rappers. This is it. And I was just so grateful that Snoop threw in that OG classic in there for all of the fans. I just thought it was incredibly impressive. And that was really a moment that I'll never forget, because that song is just so legendary and so iconic. From there, Snoop kept the energy going. He threw out Drop It Like It's Hot, which of course got the girls going crazy. They love that song. I like how he has a healthy mix of songs for the fellas and the ladies. He went into Snoop Dogg, What's My Name, got the crowd singing his name. And at the end of it, Snoop said, hey, you guys heard the story about Snoop Dogg trying to get his Canadian residency, right? Did I say residentship twice? I think I did. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. A Canadian residency, and people were going crazy. And he was just saying, can I get my residency? Will you guys have me live out here? And people were just loving it. You know, he was just working the crowd so much. He did this other funny segment where he said, how many of you guys have Snoop Dogg on your bucket list? People go crazy. And he said, how many of you guys want to hang out with Snoop Dogg? How many of you guys want to have a drink with Snoop Dogg? Just, minimal. And how many of you guys want to smoke bud with Snoop Dogg? The place goes crazy. Place goes insane. And I had to laugh. Like, the place was absolutely going bonkers. I was like, this motherfucker's up here doing crowd work. I was like, Snoop Dogg is doing crowd work, and he's got the audience in the palm of his hand. It was so funny. So that was really the end of the experience. He closed it off with a rendition of Young, Wild, and Free, which I thought was awfully odd, by the way. He had these visuals up of clouds and such, and they started putting smoke by his feet like fog. And it looked like he was trying to portray like a godlike image. It was a little odd, honestly. But I don't know what that was all about. But listen, there's some eccentric stuff that goes on in the entertainment business, and this is certainly not something that's new to me at this stage in the game. But I thought the ending was weird. I thought it took points away. The show ended kind of sloppily. When the ending music was playing, Snoop was still having fun, sort of jamming on stage, which is cool. I'm not hating or anything. Just making an observation. But yeah, people were starting to file out and stuff, and that was really the end of the show. But really what Snoop Dogg and Friends delivered. By the way, can I mention that they were so high, like they don't even remember the name of the tour. Like they were literally up there talking about this is the Puff Puff Pass tour, and they had graphics for the Puff Puff Pass tour 2018 with like 3 rappers that weren't even at the show. I was like, this is why it's hard to get an interview, because literally shit is just on the fly with these types of dudes a lot of the time, and they just operate differently. They operate, I don't even know how they operate, in their own goddamn way. But that's the beauty of this. But the Snoop Dogg and Friends tour, what this provided for viewers at the concert was an overall Snoop Dogg experience. You got a good taste of the gangster old school Snoop Dogg, the roots of Snoop Dogg. You got a nice percentage of the pop Snoop Dogg, which you've heard on the radio, which everybody is into. And then you got a small percentage of like the singing gospel Snoop Dogg, which is the new stuff that he's doing now. I don't know if it was gospel. He had girls shaking their asses on stage, but the sing-songy sort of Snoop Dogg. So you really got the whole experience. Not only that, you got to see the Dog Pound, which wasn't announced, Kurupt, Afroman, really all these people who were integral to the gang, and they were at these award shows, they were at these concerts, performances with all these legends, and they have a lot to say and a lot to share, and I value them. I value their experience, and I value their knowledge. That's why I was fighting so hard to try and get interviews this time around, but you can't get them every time around. But I'm grateful to have been able to photograph this event and witness it firsthand, and this was absolutely incredible. I think this show was a lot better than expected. I've been having my issues with Snoop Dogg, with the way he's been behaving publicly, talking down on various public figures when he seems to not have very much information on what's going on. So tonight I gave Snoop a chance to separate the personal things from the music and to wow me with the show, and that's what he did. That's exactly what Snoop did. The design was good. The crowd engagement was good. He had people wrapped around his finger the entire show. People all the way up I'm talking the very, very, very back row were jumping around, moving their hands with him and going crazy. That's pretty much all you can ask for at a concert. The sound was fantastic. It was very loud and booming clear. You could hear everybody's microphone and vocals crystal clear, and everybody provided a jam-packed performance. This was a premium concert experience, in my opinion. I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. Sorry, I'm gonna give it 7.5 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. I hate to change my rating right after giving the official rating statement, but 7.5 out of 10. I highly recommend this to the diehard Snoop Dogg fan. I recommend this to the casual Snoop Dogg fan, although if you're not really into the other groups, I'm not sure how much you'll enjoy it. But definitely would recommend this concert if you get the chance to see Snoop coming up, and was not disappointed by this tour.